Hello Blazers, welcome to episode 2 of UAB Green and Told, where we have conversations with members of the UAB family. I'm Greg Berry, Assistant Director in the UAB Office of Alumni Affairs. In this episode of Green and Told, we sit down with Tammi Thomas, a former Blazer athlete and current member of the National Alumni Society Board of Directors. Tammi's path to UAB wasn't conventional. It wasn't even close to being conventional. As she'll explain, she was all set to go elsewhere.
And I had lots of coaches interested in me, and we had lots of discussions, but none of them were from UAB.
And as a student athlete, Tammi found out there were challenges balancing sports and academics.
On an athletic scholarship, it's like having a job. It's like you have to do this.
But it was athletics and the opportunities that UAB provided her that has kept Tammi connected.
I can't think of a better thing to do at this time of my life than to promote the school.
Tammi Thomas grew up in Huntsville, Alabama as a Nassau baby. Not only did her dad work there, her friends' parents did as well. The discussion of a man on the moon was everyday life for Tammi and her friends. But she gravitated towards athletics, running cross country in the fall and track in the spring. All set to go elsewhere for college, it was a late phone call that would change the course of her life and led her to UAB.
Well, that's a funny story on itself. I don't know if I caught the eye of the UAB coaching staff because cross country was pretty new at UAB. And there was a guy by the name of Fred Haverly, a redhead, who was the coach, but unbeknownst to anybody in the running world. So when you went to meet, you kind of knew that college coaches would show up. And I wanted to go to Auburn, or I wanted to go to Western Kentucky. And I had lots of coaches interested in me, and we had lots of discussions, but none of them were from UAB. So after a couple of scholarship offers came in, which usually start, in the very beginning of the year, and I was supposed to be headed off to school in 1980. By about May, maybe it's April, I get this phone call from UAB. Very late in the process.
Kidding, yeah.
And I was headed off to study architecture at Auburn and run track and cross country. So reluctantly, I went down, came here to Birmingham, loved it. Became a Blazer right then and there. So it was kind of short and sweet, and it was a full ride, plus a little bit of stipend on top of that. So it was a 4-year scholarship. So it was hard to turn down. So I had to change my major. Obviously, architecture was not one of the things offered at UAB, but yeah, so that's how I made my decision.
So you came down here and you pivoted from architecture to mathematics and computer science.
Yeah.
Not exactly the same linear path.
No, not at all. That was another source of struggles at home. My dad, being the NASA engineer, wanted me to do something that I would be sure to get a job in. He said, computer science, you should do computer science. I'm like, I hate computer science because I had to take it in high school. No, it'd be good. You should do that. And I said, no, I'll do math. That I agreed to do because I can do that. So we compromised, and I got a double major. I kind of rogered up. My dad pushed me into that field, and that I never changed. So I left my desire to have an art-related career, and moved into a STEM career.
What was it like as an athlete balancing athletics and academics? Because that can be a challenge for many people.
Very hard, very difficult. And add on that, you're at school. It's new. You're not having to report in what time you're coming home, or where can you go, or what are you eating, and when are you eating, and when are you studying. So it's a lot of things that come together, and really on an athletic scholarship, it's like having a job. It's like you have to do this. So kind of the fun came out of it a little bit, but it was like, I got to run today. I mean, I never did so many rain dances my freshman year. Please let it rain. But, here at the collegiate level, rain, you're going to run. I mean, unless it's a lightning storm, you're out there.
Well, it's not like it was baseball or softball. Nowadays they play year round, but you had cross country, and then you had track. So you were going all the time.
Oh yeah, it's a scholarship. So you are repping the university 24/7. And technically, we had a cross country team. We didn't have enough people to field a true track and field team. So we would get together and either create a relay team or have a few people that would go and run in track meets. You know, you can't just take 6 months off of running and hope to get back into it, when your season comes up.
In early 2019, UAB opened a new facility for its track and field athletes to use. The new home features 8 lanes for running and spots for discus, javelin, and shot put. The state-of-the-art facility is a far cry of where Tammi and her teammates had to train.
You probably know that when you're running cross country and when you're running track, you need to do interval work. You got to do track work.
Mm-hmm.
So, unbeknownst to me, well, I heard we had a track, but I didn't actually get to visit it, when I did my initial visit. We had a track, and it was green, and it was kind of circular, and it was awful.
Mm-hmm.
It was terrible. It was horrendous.
When you say circular, and you say kind of circular, it really wasn't much of a circle. It was almost square.
Yeah, it was. I think it may have been equal distance on all sides, The radius would be about the same if you stood in the middle of the field. The radius was pretty much the same unless you got to the very corners. And, it would have been better had they been banked, because you probably would have had a lot more momentum. You could get a lot more traction that way. But I would call it a square oval circle, because the stripes on the lanes did not have corners.
Okay.
They were a curve. It was a curve.
Tammi has become a passionate blazer. After a short message from the UAB National Alumni Society, find out where that passion comes from.
We're uncorking the future and tapping into success at the 11th Annual Uncork Education on Sunday, October 27th, 2019. Enjoy an evening of craft beer and wine tasting that includes incredible live and silent auction items. Join us as we raise our glasses to raise money for student scholarships. To find out more about the 2019 Uncork Education or to purchase your tickets, visit alumni.uab.edu/uncork.
For years, Tammi has bled green and gold. She's a diehard blazer. That passion stems from progress.
Because the changes that have been made since the 80s is amazing. To see UAB from what it was to what it is now, it just makes me want to cry when I think about all the progress that we've made. In a track, that's probably the last on somebody's list, I always thought. Once we started naming buildings, once we started to get away from the buildings 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you could start to, Campbell Hall and University Center, and things started to make a roll, it just became really fast-paced and an exciting ride to be on. So, I went there. I'm a blazer. I went to UAB. That's my school. So I was really attached to everything that happened here on campus and the changes that took place. Because when I came here, campus life was not. It wasn't all about the campus life. That was kind of what we missed. There was a small group of us who lived on campus, but a lot of people came in and commuted. So we were kind of like trailblazers trying to get student life started. So I think the passion comes from being in the beginning of something that's going to turn out to be really great.
And you left in 1984. Did you start right at Intergraph, or was there a time?
No, I interviewed and had a job lined up before I graduated.
How did UAB prepare you for that moment, going straight from school to professional life?
I was in a lot of different organizations. I got involved in everything I could. I was president of Panhellenic. In my senior year, I was vice president of my sorority. Did a lot of volunteer work through different organizations at UAB. And we actually at that time had an office where they scheduled interviews for us. So we actually got a little, training on writing a resume and had the interview process and even scheduling some interviews. But my family knew a professor/dean in the medical school, and they asked if he would help me with my resume. And so I got some additional help from him. And he said, Tammy, you come on in and I'll help you write a CV. I thought, what is a CV? So UAB had helped prepare for that, the preparation of getting a job and then the transition to a career.
And you spent a career at Intergraph. You retired in 2015, and while you were there, you worked in the federal division doing a couple different things: marine life cycle systems, critical infrastructure protection. What kind of things did you learn while you were here that you implemented throughout the career?
Team. Everything's a team. I mean, there's what is the saying? There's no I in we. In order to be successful, everybody plays a part, and you are just a cog in the wheel, a piece of the puzzle for an overall solution.
So how did your career kind of progress once you got at Intergraph? You got your foot in the door, then what? How did you climb the ladder? Because you wound up being high up in the company.
Yeah, I was, let's see, I guess you could say I was a little type A. I'm not sure that was either, that could help, that could be some help or hurt. But I always spoke my mind. There was not a lot of sugarcoating. And back in that day, it was, people were rewarded for working hard and trying to do what was best for the company, right? I mean, you're on a project, you work as many hours it takes to get the job done. You're willing to do whatever work is assigned to you. I worked for a 3-star admiral, and I will never forget his advice. Never say no to a project, because once you start whining about a project, you're going down. But when you accept all the projects that you have been assigned and you give it 110%, you will make your way. And that's essentially what I did. And I just fell into some opportunities, was very fortunate. Mr. Jim Medlock, who ran the company at the time, afforded me a lot of great opportunities, and just kind of, next thing I know, I find myself being the only female in a male-dominated shipbuilding industry, which was pretty fun in itself.
How challenging is that?
Oh yeah, it was very only female. So what did I do? I brought on a team of females. So it was interesting, because you learn that everything's an exchange. I may know something about systems and how to automate your processes, and you may know about shipbuilding, of which I know nothing about, and together we will share our knowledge and we will build a better path forward.
A 1984 graduate, Tammi has remained connected to UAB. In fact, several years ago, she decided to submit a nomination to be considered for the UAB National Alumni Society Board of Directors. And there was one driving force behind that decision.
Give back. I was afforded a lot of opportunities, came here on a scholarship, and I want to promote UAB. I mean, I can't think of a better thing to do at this time of my life than to promote the school where I got my degree. In fact, I went back and got a master's degree and studied in social media and kind of became a nut about learning. But I love UAB, so I definitely wanted to give back.
You did come back. You picked up 2 different things. One's a social media certificate. The other one was a Master of Science in Management and Information Systems. Why was that important to come back and do those? Obviously, the continued learning, but what else was behind that?
I'm eating crow here, because when I became a manager and worked my way up at Intergraph, and you get the people on your team that were experts in what they did, and if they had a bachelor's degree, that was great, and move on. I never really put a lot of stock into, you have a master's or, any kind of further education. I'm eating crow because that was wrong. And I think it's important to have people on your team who have had some extra dedication and attention towards a specific field. Once I had gotten to the tail end of my career, I thought, I never did go and get a master's. So when I could have done it and had the company pay for it, I was traveling, I was, raising a family. Everything was very, very busy, fast-paced. And so when I had the time, I thought, I'm going to go back and get the master's. But before I did the master's, I got hung up on social media because when I worked, we weren't really allowed to participate in social media. And when we lost our football team, which was just so sad in itself, just awful, I watched the grassroots kind of come up from nowhere, and the vocal few and people making noise about we need our football team back. And I saw the power of that, but I didn't know what social media was. So that was my first initial thought was I want to go find out about social media. I want to be a part of whatever this is that made our team come back. I definitely want to know about that.
You've seen a lot change over the years. You mentioned building 1, building 2, building 3. What about just the explosion over the last few years, over the last decade on campus, and how it's just been transformed? It's just been amazing.
Oh, I know. Yeah, streets used to be, you had to cross streets to get everywhere. Now you got streets that are closed. When I was here, that was a big dream. Oh, wow, I wish we could just close the street. Or, our sorority. I wish we could just have one room on campus where our sorority could meet, the change, explosion's the right word. It's just booming. I love the fact UAB, we're just buying up, square blocks left and right, buying old buildings, tearing them down, and revitalizing. And it's hard to say revitalize because I just think it's just part of the continuing innovation that you see at UAB, where everything just continues to get bigger and better and better and better and better. But explosion is definitely the right term.
What's the one thing about UAB that makes you most proud?
Perseverance.
Why?
Well, you start out as a night school, I guess, as part of the University of Alabama system. You become your own, but you're still you're just kind of a city school. Then, you get athletics, which, Coach Bartow always said that will put your name out there. And when you have your name out there, that attracts more students to come and be a part of what you've got. So I think it's just been, it's an enormous, it's overwhelming. It's just completely overwhelming.
Where does UAB go from here? They've already made great strides over first 50 years, and especially over the last decade when, as we spoke about, things are just exploding on campus. Where do we go?
I think research, we have been, no secret that, the medical sciences is kind of what people think about when they think about UAB and the research in that area. And that, to me, is a great aspect of what we do at UAB. But what I would love to see for the next 50 is other research in other areas. Medicine is definitely one field that we're very good at, but I'm sure that we could get very innovative with engineering or, with forensic science or with, even in the computer science fields, come up with something that's different and new. Security, the cybersecurity, which is now such a big deal and will be in the future. I'm ready for some innovation on that side as well.
Those who know Tammi will tell you she's as green as gold as they come. Her closet is crammed full of UAB gear to sport every day of the year, but she jokes that she's short on green shoes. She's a true Blazer. But for Tammi, just what does it mean to be a Blazer?
Other than having a lot of green and gold in my wardrobe,
yeah,
I think being innovative. When I think of Blazer, I think of Trailblazer, and I think of course, I always think of the fire out of a dragon's mouth, of course, but just not fearful, shooting for the prize, being innovative, coloring outside the lines, think outside the box.
Stay on top of all of our UAB Green and Told episodes by checking out our podcast page at alumni.uab.edu/greenandtold. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast or leave a review wherever you listen in. Have a question for me or would like to suggest a future guest? Email me at greenandtold@uab.edu. Thanks for listening, and until next time, go Blazers!